Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today we're going to do a little bit of reflection. We want to think about if you were to write a book about all of the things that you've done, where would you start? And we're going to suggest that you start today and you start with a review of what you've done up to this point. Now, we're recording, it's early December. So we're thinking it's the end of the year and it's a good time to reflect, and holidays are coming up and all of those things, but you might be listening to this in January or February. So take it back 12 months from when you're hearing this podcast and think about what you have achieved in the last 12 months. What are the good things? And Fulyana's going to give you some rules about how you do that and what you can't do, because she's very good at what you can't do.
What you can't do is to talk about what I haven't done or my last 12 months have been and how somebody else would have done better. Instead of that, I'd like you to focus on what you have achieved, write it down and write its dot point, headings if you like. You can start grouping it. You might want to do about what I have achieved at work, for me personally, could be health, fitness, etc., family, friends. Break them up into groups that you're comfortable with, that means something to you. It could be sport and recreation, it could be family, whatever those are.
That's probably the first exercise, and I'm going to also suggest that you physically write it down, that you don't type it up on your phone or on a computer or any other kind of device, but you actually use pen and paper, because there's a direct correlation between you physically writing something down, because you actually read it and you say it in your head, rather than worry about where is the key that I should be pressing now to make this letter and is that spelled right. Writing it down, it's a scientifically proven activity that physically writing it down will help you remember it better than any other activity. So physically write it down, but start with the areas that you'd like to be reviewing. So it might be, as Fulyana said, it might be under a work grouping. You might have an immediate job that you've been doing, the immediate task or the projects that you've been working on. It might be your relations with the rest of the team or work group that you're in, or your clients or your mentees or whatever it is that you're working with. It might be another grouping for family or home relationships or friends or social activities or something that is not work related, and break those up into, I would think that for each of those you should be able to have another 6 subheadings of things that relate to those areas that you could talk about. And if you can think of the headings and you can't think of anything that you've achieved or is positive in that heading area, the fact that you've identified it is positive to start with. So that becomes the next positive that you carry through for the next 12 months.
Don't analyse at that point. After you've done those headings, just capture the action. So completed city to surf under whatever sports heading or whatever. You just, as an example, do not...
So for Fulyana would be thought about the city to surf, saw that the city to surf was on, read the results of the city to surf. Sorry.
That's all positive, Kim.
It is.
Anyway, if you identified the topic, then, as I said, don't analyse it. Don't say how well I've done the city to surf or how bad or whatever. Just that you've done it to start off with. This way, keep your mind focused on actions completed in a positive sense. One of the things that we tend to do as human beings is feel, I haven't done enough and I haven't done as well as someone else. Now, that's tempting, but you need to stick to what you have achieved and positive. To help you out, think about a person you admire the most. It could be your best friend, it could be someone, whatever. If you think about somebody who you think have done a lot more and a lot better than you, just list down without question, without judgment, what you think they have done. And then, once you've done your list first, then the other person, then you go back and you look at both. And what you might find is you actually have done more than what you admire that other person for, or you already captured a lot of the things that other person done, but you've done it your way, and it still was the same heading.
I'm not big on comparisons, I have to say. I would refer you back to the most recent podcast that we did with Crystal and Josh Hockley, where we talked about their personal goals and their personal achievements. And you will hear in that, and if you've read the race reports, you will see in that they, although they're in a competitive, very competitive sport, they don't compare themselves to anyone else. Their performance is purely about their own individual goals they've set in their own previous performances, so they continually talk about personal best. So I would encourage you to think about your personal best. Set some levels for yourself of things that you want to achieve and the level that you want to achieve, and do that comparison rather than a comparison with someone else.
Yeah.
Because you can't genuinely compare with someone else because it's not apples and apples. You just don't know.
Well, I totally agree with you, and I wouldn't do it. I would do exactly what you're saying, Kim, but what I'm saying is some people will. And if they have to, just to get that out of their system and not to derail the exercise, is to just put it aside, because sometimes we think things are better somewhere else, and then when you actually look at it, you realise, hey, I've done good.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, to me, I only compete with me, so it doesn't matter. But for some people, that
No one can compete with you anyway, so we digress, sorry.
So taking stock is about what have I achieved in the last 12 months, and then this is the exercise, beginning and end, is to see what you achieved, not what you have not achieved.
You should know how important it is. She's banging the desk.
Because then exercise 2 would be the planning for action going forward. The action going forward would say, yeah, look, I achieved all of that. I maybe even achieved more than what I set myself as goals in the last year, this time last year. However, going forward, I want a completely different plan. I want to go divert away from this path and do something else, which is fine. Of course it's fine because you had time to think about it and it's your life.
And I think when you're in that process too, I've come across a really useful exercise in the last month about that planning forward. And it looks at need, want and qualities. So the first part of the exercise is, what do I need or what do I need to do right now? It's an exercise of immediacy. It's if I had the open checkbook and the wherewithal to pay for anything that needed to happen right now, what would that be? What are the things that need to happen right now? And the same in terms of work, what are the things that need to happen right now in terms of the workplace? And then the second list is, what do I want? And the want is about a longer term thinking. So what do I want to happen in the next 12 months? And pick some areas. And then you look at that want list and you write down the qualities that you would need to make that happen. And that from those two lists you can develop some, I'm going to say, goals, some targets, and have a target-rich environment, all my buzzwords. But like you can identify qualities that you would need to have those things that you've listed as your wants. And some of those qualities you might already have, and some might need development. It gives you an opportunity to really plan what your focus will be in the next 12 months. And what I found in doing that exercise myself is that the things that I wanted, there was 3 things. And I would have said to myself that there was a great long list of things that I want. But it's the immediacy of what do I want now? If anything could happen, what do I want to happen now? Then material things. It wasn't really anything about my development or the work that I was doing or the things that I wanted to achieve. It was all about immediate and pretty much material things that were going to happen. 3 things. But the list of things that I wanted to happen in the next 12 months was about 8 or 9 things. And that, realistically could happen in that period of time. And the qualities that I needed, there were about 5 qualities I needed. Some I have, some needed bolstering, some were things that until I did that exercise, I hadn't really thought about as a quality that I might need to be able to do these other things. So an interesting exercise in need, want and qualities when you're reviewing that list that you've already done.
I'll just add to qualities/resources as well, because they can be in any shape or form.
Yeah. If we look at the exercise that we're doing, we're reviewing what you've done in the past 12 months and we're keeping it positive. We're looking at the achievements in of themselves. I'd like to add that if you've achieved, you feel that they're achievements that are worthy of recording, I'd like to see how you celebrated those.
Yes.
Because that's important as well. And if you get to the point where you're writing this great long list of things that you've done in the past 12 months, things that you've achieved, things that you're proud to write down, and you can't do that next sentence about how you celebrated, then there's something that you need to work on in the next 12 months that is about celebrating. And there's a whole lot of podcasts that you need to listen to about Fulyana talking about how to celebrate achievements, because it is important. It is part of you remembering and recognising that you have achieved. Achievement is, it's a word for a reason. You have actually done something. You have surpassed the bottom line. So that needs to be rewarded, recognised, celebrated.
The other thing is that when you're celebrating, even as you're writing, when Kim says, then you realise, sometimes we forget, oh yeah, I did that, and it's big and means something to you. A colleague of mine did this exercise, and he said he couldn't help but stand up, stop writing, punch the air, and do a little happy dance. And I think that is a celebration.
Yeah.
It's a recognition of what you've done. In the planning stage, when you set your goals, yes, make them realistic, but not too easy. Some people like the fact that they have this need that they have to tick the box, I did it, I did it, I did it.
I've got a list.
The list is good, but don't make your goal too easy, just so that you can say, I've done it. Make your goal challenging, realistic, but challenging. I think you'll find this exercise useful for yourself and for others. If you're in a team environment and if you're in a leading role, when you write that, some of those achievements are not just yours, they're team. And again, you could use that summary to celebrate with others. This could be a family thing, that you just bought a house that was on your list before, or renovated, or whatever. Celebrate that with the people that in your family. It's good for you to do it, but it's good for you to recognise who helped you get there and who you did it with.
Yeah. Because for some of those, the people in that group, that might be a trigger for them. It might be something that spurs them on to think, well, this comparison that we talked about earlier, if you did it, well, I can too.
Yeah.
But take it further than that, so that if you do inspire them, rather than have them do the comparison, offer them a helping hand. Offer to say, well, these are the things that we struggle with, this is the plan that we work to, and just be there as a sounding board, so that they've got a resource that they can call on if they need some help along the way. The thing that I was trying to think of was not to make it negative, but sometimes the goals that you set yourself come out of a negative situation. My example is someone that I know who was a very heavy drinker and had been for a long, long time, and at one point just decided cold turkey, not going to do it anymore. And for the first 12 months or so, it was not a struggle so much as, but very much prevalent in the day-to-day activities and the thinking, and was I'm not drinking. And he is part of a very social activity where there was drinking happening at the end of every activity, and in a job where drinking was part of the out-of-work social activity as well, and in this country it is very socially acceptable, and it's difficult to be in that sort of environment and not be a drinker of any description, but he felt that he had to, one was too much and one was not enough approach, so he had to not do any. We are now at the point where we know the anniversary of when he stopped drinking, but we can't work out how many years it is.
Oh, wow.
So what came from a negative situation, a negative impact on his life, a goal of achieving a certain thing, and it has continued. But we do make a point of every year remembering that it's another year has passed, but we don't know how many years it is. I was only thinking about it then and thinking how pleasing that is that it's not important anymore. The fact that, because yes, we still celebrate that it's not happening, but it doesn't matter. The time that's passed doesn't matter. It's not negative in that we're not remembering the negative impact. What we're celebrating is the positivity of more years passing without that influence. Well, I think we've probably talked long about this topic of reflection and of writing down the things that you have done in the past 12 months that you're going to see as achievements and use that as the sounding board or the starting platform for what you'd like to do in the next 12 months. We did at the beginning talk about it being writing a book of what you've done. So let's, at this point, because we've just introduced that, start with the chapters. So we'll start with the chapters that you're doing. So this year is the first chapter. And at some point in the next 12 months, we'll revisit the topic and we'll take it a step further. But for now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.